I have the distinct pleasure of being able to introduce in just a moment here our guest for the day. So one of my favorite people in the whole world. She happens to be our Chief Operating Officer. Her name is Wessal Khader. And we're going to talk today about this idea of being fastest to the fight. So Wessal comes to us as ListRaports eminently qualified. She was the president of all retail lending for Veterans United, was there from, I think, 30 or 40 people to over 2,000 employees. She's tremendously inspirational, and she came to me with this message, and immediately it just resonated, right? Fastest to the fight. This is how we operate as a business, and it's not easy, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring Wessal on right now. So Wessal, why don't you say hello to our agentpreneurs?
Hello, agentpreneurs. Hi, Randy.
Hi, Wessal.
Happy day. Which day is it again? It's Sunday, isn't it?
Seriously.
They're all working together.
It's a Matuz for Woods a Saturday or something like that. One of the clips I showed a while ago.
Something like that.
Something like that. Really excited to have you on today. You've got your Power Red on. It's, I guess, the equivalent of like a red tie
Power
or something, right? And so you're gonna talk here, and you're gonna introduce this idea. So tell our agentpreneurs what does this mean? What is fastest to the fight?
You know, it's so great whenever you hear someone else's words and they bring clarity to something you're already feeling or experiencing. And I think that happens to me frequently being around a lot of our very smart teammates at ListReports. This was actually something I overheard on a call I was having with an executive at a mortgage company. And it really resonated with me. That's why I shared it with you the other day, because it really wrapped up sort of why our team has been experiencing what I think you would call extreme success during crisis. And, you know, we've been really grateful over the past few weeks. You shared with the agentpreneurs on Monday how we secured a PPP loan, which was incredibly difficult to do based on all of the different situations that are happening, how we've executed very quickly and brought a lot of new product out to market during a time of crisis. There's a lot of just underlying factors that allow an individual, a team, or company to execute that way during a situation like this. And if you think about what those factors are, a lot of it's speed, but there's underlying issues that get you there. And I was thinking about it, and I overheard an executive tell me on the phone that, you know, I basically asked him, I was like, hey, we got this great solution we're rolling out and we want you to be involved. And as I was explaining it to him, you know, basically anybody could build a lot of the stuff that any software company builds, right? It's not about the idea necessarily. In general, execution means everything, especially during times like these. And I asked him why he was interested in working with us at this point. And he said, listen, you know, during a situation like this, everybody has ideas, but whomever can get them into the hands of the people who are going to be able to leverage them to make the most impact the fastest are going to win. And he told me that he thinks that our company is one that resembles a motto that they've been using. And this company was at Movement Mortgage. And their CEO, Casey Crawford, had just come out on Twitter recently with this hashtag fastest to the fight. And it's a motto he had been sharing with all of their employees at Movement Mortgage. Great company culture there, very widely known for being just wonderfully ethical leaders in the industry. And their hashtag is fastest to the fight. And, you know, I went and I read a little bit about what Casey's motto was to his team, and it very much emulated what we've been doing. You know, basically every team that I've ever worked with and everyone that Casey's ever worked with has been fastest to the fight, which means when there's a problem, you run into the problem instead of running away from them. And actually, because you run into the problem first, you're just dynamically able to handle that situation better than the next guy who would, because you got there first. That notion is pretty interesting. It takes a very strong level of mental fortitude in order to think that way and go that direction. And when you do it, what happens next is you encourage others around you to join in that fight, because your action, that dynamism that happens when you really take ownership of an opportunity, is very infectious. And I see that all over ListReports. I see that with our agentpreneurs all the time. I'm seeing every day that we're offering advice and hearing back from people who are watching the show, Randy, that they are taking the advice that they're hearing, they're synthesizing it, and they're acting on it incredibly quickly. And those are the people I want to be around. That's the motivation. Yeah, it's so inspiring. So I put red on today, and I'm not in yoga pants. I mean, we've all been working from home lately. I mean, you probably have the same black t-shirt on, I'm guessing, a couple of days in a row now, Randy.
I've changed the shirt, right? This has become my thing. But Wessal, here's what's interesting, right? One of the things that we touched on is, and we've talked about kind of at length, is a lot of people sort of know the right thing to do, right? Let's just say it's, 2 hours of phone calls and door knocking, whatever the things are. People or eating healthy. People know the things to do. But what's interesting
Yes.
is that what we've talked about is that even though we sort of in many ways like to think that we embody this mindset, it really is that team aspect. So it's inspiring others, but also being re-inspired from them. I talked about just a couple minutes ago how, frankly, I'm a little tired, right? I need to take a break. And so these conversations are helpful to me as well. So how do you think about that for agents out there who are either in this mindset and have an obligation to their teams or need to sort of be reboosted and recharged?
Well, I had to ask myself that same question because I think what are we about 2 months into handling this crisis in our personal lives and our work lives in America, right? In every country in the world. As we're going through this, different phases of mental clarity kind of happen and feelings evolve. And what we're seeing now is while people are dealing with the health effects of the crisis on the ground, we're now seeing a buildup in terms of how people are handling the emotional side of this fight that we're in, right? It's starting to mount. And I think you might be seeing this. I've seen this more with our customers lately and just in my communications that the emotions are taking a toll because of the duration of us dealing with this crisis and also not knowing the ultimate duration. A lot of still fear and anxiety in people. When that happens, you have to deal with it one of different ways. And one of the ways that I'm suggesting that we think about ourselves in light of this crisis is to be fastest to take action of some kind, right? Action for everybody means a different thing. And it needs to be something that comes from a place of calm inside you. And how do you get there? Everybody has a different way of unwinding. You're about to hopefully get some sun today, take a little space. You know, some people read, some people relax, but really your mind and the health of your mind comes from you talking to yourself about what you need to do. And I think that that's the message that we haven't really been able to share very clearly because it's sort of evolving now. How do you wake up every day and get your mind in the right space so that every action that you take throughout the day is the most impactful for yourself and for the world? That isn't necessarily the question we're all asking ourselves because we're sort of just doggy paddling through things day by day, taking, the situations as they come and trying to maneuver something that's very unknown. But if you could just do that with a completely different mindset, we think that the impact of that could be tremendous, right? And so when I was thinking about that, Randy, and the act of having to have mental self-discipline in order to go about executing all the different things that we have to do during this crisis, changing our business, changing the way we're living, our habits, our routines, our sleep, our meals, everything is different. How do you navigate all of it with the right mindset? And I was thinking, well, how am I doing it? And I was thinking of who I go to for inspiration and calm during these times of fear and not necessarily knowing what's going on. And I actually been leaning a lot on my buddies from the military. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize why. Why was I calling them more frequently than others? And I realized it's because they just exude a complete sense of calm when they were giving me advice or, war rooming, strategizing with me about business items. When I'm talking to them, they seem so much more prepared than me for the situation, right? Mentally. And so I thought about it and I was like, duh, years of working with the military at Veterans United, we serve the military. Our customers today, real estate agents and mortgage loan officers are massive supporters of the military and fans of it. And a lot of them are veterans themselves. And I started thinking about it. Most everyone who I know who served in the military has a special type of qualification and training that has made them far more prepared to deal with this situation than we are as civilians. And it occurred to me that that was the case. And so I started making some calls about it and asking. And most of my buddies in the military are just super calm about this because they have a very strong mental position when they wake up in the day. Their routines haven't shaken as much as ours because they've been trained about how to deal with their own minds when going through crisis. So on that note, how do you apply some of the same principles that our actual military has been very, very well versed with having access to and just living their lives by those principles? And it made me remember a book that we all love at ListRapport called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif
pull
Babin.
that up here, Wessal, so that everybody can see that. And let's talk a little bit about that. So I've got a screenshot here, Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. So this is a really interesting book. I know it's meant a lot to the company and to you. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you've learned from this book?
So this book is a really cool story about a real life set of leaders, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, who led Navy SEALs during the Battle of Ramadi in Iraq. Okay, this is a real life duo of absolutely incredible leaders who wrote a book about their experience so that others could learn how they think about dealing with situations like they've dealt with, and how a leader could apply those things in a normal setting, business setting, and personal life. And so the lessons that are in this book are basically the tactics that you'd want to use to get your mind right during this time. They're very similar to some of the same thematic items we think would be supportive in helping somebody navigate their own feelings through the day, that will either enable or disable them from taking action and being fastest to the fight. If you can't get off the rocker here, you can't get the motivation of the day, and you also don't know what the strategy is about what you're supposed to do, some people become paralyzed. And what they talk about is how to avoid that with a rigor and a methodology before you even get into the situation that prepares you for it. And that sort of methodology they use is called extreme ownership. We've talked about it a lot at the company. We're really big fans of these leaders, this book, and actually AJ, our partner, our CEO, he went to their live strategy course where they actually talk in person about how to take these principles and apply them to your life and business. And I remember when AJ came back from that event, he was so motivated and so inspirational because his mind was in a really strong place and he had gotten there himself.
That's right.
So that's generally the theme, Randy. And there are some ways to apply some of those techniques, but I would love every agentpreneur to read this book, because not only is it a really phenomenal tale of American heroism and leadership, it is actually very applicable to all of us in our daily lives right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, and that is a great resource, Wessal. I think, for the agents who are watching and when you're out there right now, we've talked so much about mindset, right? This idea that you're going to come out of this better than you entered it. And so much of this is mindset. And all of us, I think, to different degrees, get inspired by different things. And I think that, Wessal, you touched on this, right? Given your background, the military is a really important part of your life. It has been. You sort of fell into it and you fell in love with it. And what a great source of inspiration for discipline, and this idea that, for me, what I think about, and I think Wessal for you and AJ and the other executives, is we have an obligation, right? And so when we look at a situation like this, it feels existential, and we say, okay, the failure is not an option. In the same way that in the military, failure is absolutely not an option.
It's absolutely true. And how do they deal with that finite statement every day? How do they approach their day? And why are they so much more qualified to deal with the emotional aftermath of being hit with an unknown or a crisis similar to COVID-19, right? And the notion in the book is that how they do that is by seizing accountability, not avoiding it. When something goes wrong, Jocko and Leif talk about how you should seek responsibility for it instead of avoiding that, even if it's outside of the nature of your control, so that you can figure out what you can do to correct the course. If you don't seize responsibility or accountability over the situation about what you can control, then you actually can't correctly plan a course of action. So step one, seize accountability, don't avoid it. That's the principle of extreme ownership. And then applying extreme ownership, sort of taking the nature of blame and complaints and negativity, and thinking about the number of times you take a situation and put blame on someone else or an external circumstance. And instead of complaining or acting on negative feelings in that moment, you actively look for how you can solve the problem for yourself right now. So it's a mindset shift. It's getting hit with information, and instead of going to what may be our habit, which might be putting blame elsewhere or thinking this is outside of my control because this is external to me, which very much resonated with me because COVID-19 is outside of all of our control worldwide, for one of the first times I've ever been able to fathom something like that happening. So how can you then take responsibility or accountability for that? Well, you can, because not all of the outcome of it is outside of your control, right? What you can control, you have to focus on so you can bring extreme ownership to the situation and act on it. And then they give some tactics about how to do that.
Well, it's funny that you said that, Wessal. I'm just pulling up. There's a comment right now that says, are there some pointers you can share from the book now? And I think you're starting to do that. So,
yes. There are
fantastic.
so many. And the book is a quick read. I mean, I don't know how many pages it is, but it's a quick read, and it is incredibly, you'll get glued to it because it very much resonates generally with leaders, with just personal mental fortitude. But especially during this time, I reread a few pages of it this morning just in recollection of it. It very much applies right now because of the feelings we're having with this sense of lack of control. A few of my favorite of the tips that they provide in the book are, first of all, keep it simple, but not easy. The simpler the plan, the more likely you are, and those around you are. Like if you're a broker, for example, you have a team or another agent on a team, the more likely your team will be to succeed if they completely understand how the plan that you want to have works. Easy to understand does not mean easy to execute, right? I would describe that as some of the things ListReports is undertaking right now. We have some very simple solutions, not exactly easy to execute, but because they're simple and clear, we're all running in the same direction, and we are now fastest to the fight, specifically with our digital open house strategy. We're right there, right? And we don't actually know exactly how it plays out or all the details, but we've taken hold of a simple idea that we can all get on board with, and it is moving the industry forward because we've all begun to believe in it. We've kept it simple, but not easy. Prioritizing. This is already hard to do in normal circumstances. I struggle with this all the time, but especially in a chaotic or high stakes environment or a sense of unknown that you might have right now, prioritizing the most important things and tackling them first with a sense of extreme ownership, incredibly important for execution. And I would say the third point that probably encompasses most of the message I'd like to get to our agentpreneurs today, Randy, is discipline is everything.
Yes.
Discipline. Discipline is the thing I think we've lost our marbles about over the last couple of months. I'm looking at us as a team and all of our colleagues and friends, and we were dieting and exercising, and we were waking up and sleeping at certain times, and we were on a routine, and now all of that's been blown apart. We're reimagining every single part of our day, and sometimes discipline's falling through the cracks. Like, what time am I really going to get up? Well, there's nobody here to really tell me what I should be doing. No one's watching me right now. I'm working from home. There's not a team around me helping me hold myself accountable. Some of those things are slipping for us, especially for the independent.
That is the hard part, right?
Yes.
But the opportunity is so tremendous, right? Because now you have so much more flexibility in terms of how you operate your day. And there's a few examples even on our team of people who are working out more than ever, right? They've saved the 2 or 3 hours of commuting or whatever. They're eating better because they're not eating out as much, right? They're like, you can't imagine a better time to actually rebuild good patterns and good behavior in your life than right now.
Yeah, and I would say that those people have taken extreme ownership over themselves and the opportunity, and they're able to execute very simply because of that. And I see that type of behavior everywhere, but it isn't the majority of people, which also, especially for real estate agents, could give you a massive competitive advantage, which is actually what the book helps you understand. Discipline is everything. Discipline and execution helps you outmaneuver your competition strategically every single time. Discipline. We were talking with Jennifer, our head of communications, yesterday, Randy, and she said that of all the communications we've heard off of our agentpreneurs group and our other agent communications, that two of the common themes that people are really interested in and really identifying with now are resilience and consistency. And it's hard to be resilient and consistent without first the really strong mindset of, hey, you know what? I can set my alarm clock and put my feet on the floor at a certain time every day and not make any excuses for myself. And there's a really phenomenal example of this exact alarm clock issue in the Extreme Ownership book that you will read that section and you'll never forget that moment where Jocko Willink and Leif describe how they set 3 alarms every morning at 4:30 a.m. and they don't ever miss getting out of bed on time. And it was just extremely motivating to me personally. Thought I'd share with everyone here because
and I think actually at his event, right?
Big waves.
AJ recounted this, sorry, Wessal, that I think even at his events, they start with a workout, first thing in the morning, right? So it almost sounds cliche, but it is that discipline and that rigor. And in the military, this sort of scenario planning, thinking through things so that when something happens, you already have the mindset which says, I can do this. And to some degree, you've thought through and gamed out some of the scenarios so that you're ready to go. You're relying on the training that you've built. And what a great time to build those habits in that training.
Well, I think about synthesizing all of the learnings I've had with all of the conversations we're having with leaders in the industry in the last few weeks and leaders in the real estate side. And, I could come out today and give everyone a bunch of tips about, make 15 calls today and make sure you get your postcards in the mail and make sure you do XYZ tactics, things that we have to do. These are sub-level tactics that we have to do to keep our business going. But fundamental to all of that is your own personal mental health and stability. And the fact of the matter is we are social beings in real estate and mortgage lending. We are meant to be around people. We get our energy from people. We get our business from people. We make things happen by talking to people. And when that's been taken away and you're at your home, Randy, and you're an independent real estate agent who's working from home now, nobody to reach out to physically, can't go get leads the same way you used to, and you're stuck inside your living room like I am right now, how do you think about that and not let it get the worst of you, right? How do you actually convince yourself that, no, this is an opportunity. There's something I can do right now. Well, that comes from discipline, and the act of becoming disciplined is something we do in different times of our lives. But right now, it's more imperative than ever for real estate agents to really think about their own self-discipline, because no one's around you telling you what to do right now. It's up to you how you design every minute of your day and what attitude you approach that day with. And I think this book is a great resource to kind of get the mind right a little bit, so you can just wake up and approach that day and then have the right mental fortitude with which to approach any situation that comes to you, whatever the tactics are that you need to get your business right.
I think that's great. And I think, that's one of the things that we hope comes from this show, is to bring on people who are industry experts or super inspirational, because we all need that. I used to play a lot of golf growing up, and one of the first things that just always blew my mind was that with professional athletes, that even if you're at the top of your game, you have coaches, right? Tiger Woods has had a coach his entire career. I'm like, what could they possibly learn from a coach? And I know obviously there's lots of real estate coaches out there. There's Jocko, there's Tony Robbins, whatever inspires you, you need that, right? Like, you need that in your life, whether it's a book or a podcast or an event. Like, we need this regular inspiration. It's super helpful.
Yeah, we do. And I think for me, and I think for a lot of our customers and listeners, the military is incredibly inspiring for many different reasons all the time. And especially now, I look to them and I think, wow, how prepared were they? How much could we learn from them? And in the act of learning from them, I just want to express significant gratitude for what they're doing for us right now as well. Just like the healthcare workers and all of the communities coming together, the military is supporting this entire initiative behind the scenes worldwide right now in such a selfless way. And they're doing it like it's any old day because they were prepared mentally. And so I think that's very inspiring. There's a lot more we can share about that, I hope, in coming weeks.
Let's talk about that for a second. So we in preparation for this, we had a kind of an exciting idea, and we'd love all of your feedback on this. But Wessal, why don't you tell everybody, given all of your relationships and your love and support for the military, why don't you talk about what we're thinking about doing leading up to Memorial Day?
Well, I just, being in mortgage lending for all these years, and actually mortgage lending for the military, for veterans, for active duty, and all the real estate agents that we work with, it's just, in the mortgage lending and real estate industries, I know that we love the military. I mean, the masses absolutely love supporting the military, learn from them, love serving those who've served. And of course, when it comes to home ownership, there's no better human being in the country that you feel great about helping out with a closing than a person who deserves to own a piece of the country they've defended, right? Like, that is the best closing we could ever have. And I think all the agentpreneurs listening right now will probably feel that one. It feels great, right? That same great feeling comes and is inspired by the leaders there, and we have access to a lot of them. So Randy and I were thinking about putting together a pretty good slate lineup of speakers that could come talk to us, military leaders, nonprofit leaders who support the military, people in the real estate and mortgage lending industry who are big fans of supporting the military, and talking about how they're doing that during this time would be pretty interesting, we thought. And so we'd love to hear what you guys think about that. We've got access to some really amazing people and customers who are veterans themselves that we would love to have come talk about how they're thinking about the situation.
I can't imagine a better intersection of a source of inspiration and people that we all love helping, and I just can't imagine a better week. So what we're thinking about doing is, in the week leading up to Memorial Day, actually having 5 days that week, and each day bringing somebody on who's really inspirational, really interesting, has a role or has had a role in the military in some way, shape, or form, and really excited about that. So please let us know if you think that's a good idea. We'd love to hear from you. If you know of somebody that you think we should bring on for that, please let us know. But I think that's going to be great, Wessal.
Great. Awesome.
So Wessal, last thing, and we can wrap this up, is, let's just sort of retouch on this idea of reframing. We've talked about this a lot within the company, and it's a common practice, and it makes, frankly, all the difference. Somebody on my team was dealing with a personal issue recently, and on her own sort of was able to reframe the problem. and 180 degrees into how you think about it, right? So, with salespeople, we say it's something like, I have to make a call to I get to make a call, right? Even that simple reframing really changes your mindset. So I don't know if you want to share any thoughts on reframing and sort of mindset, and maybe a last little rah before we let you go for the day.
Absolutely. Self-talk is everything, especially when you're isolated, right? Like you're only talking to yourself a lot of the time, or your spouse and your kids right now, who you may or may not want to talk to at this point, 2 months in. And if it's you and yourself in your mind at your home at 5:30 in the morning or whenever you have to get up and tackle that day, you telling yourself what a blessing it is and what a moment of opportunity every minute in that day is, can set the right mindset for the entire day. And so, I think that friend that might have had that challenge was probably me, Randy, because, just in the last 6 to 8 weeks, our roles have changed. Every one of us, every individual agent, every brokerage, every mortgage loan officer, and everybody in our company's job has changed fundamentally in this last couple of weeks, right? Mine has changed. I find myself on the phone for 12 to 14 hours a day, and that was nowhere close to what I was doing with my mix of time prior to the crisis. And, instead of being like, oh my gosh, I have to go on one more call today, which is definitely how we feel in sales or in marketing, right? You don't. You get the opportunity to. And if you don't believe that what you're doing is actually going to help the other person or impact the other person, then you probably shouldn't be in that job anyway. That's a whole different story. But I know every agentpreneur on this live right now and who's watching us, who works with us, the customers of ours, people love their role. People love being real estate agents and representatives of their community. They love making impact on people's lives. Like we just talked about, getting those keys in the hand of a person who served our country is the reason we do this business, right? So Don't forget that. When you wake up in the morning, you got to make 50 calls to your sphere of influence. You got to send out, 100 emails or work on those files in the middle of this chaos and not knowing where your next deal is coming from. You get the opportunity to serve your community right now. And if you take extreme ownership and jump into those problems and be fastest at the fight, you're going to motivate everyone around you, your families, your teammates at your companies, your clients. And I guarantee you that positivity definitely comes back to you in folds. I think we've all seen that in our lives and careers. Just a reminder here, what you tell yourself matters. Tell yourself nice, calm, positive things about the beautiful opportunity we have every day to make a big difference right now.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great way to wrap it up. Hey, Wessal, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you say goodbye to our agentpreneurs out all across the country?
Thank you all. I'm sure I'll be talking to you again soon. I wish you all luck and blessings today. Have a great one.
Absolutely. Thanks, Wessal. So I'm going to pull up the book again here one more time in case you missed it. If we can get a link posted in the comments to this, that'd be great. So Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. Lots and lots of great lessons from that. So definitely check that out. It's been a really inspirational book for us within the company. And so I know that you're going to enjoy that. I'm actually going to show one more thing here real quick, which one of the people on our team, Sandra, actually shared and asked me to read today, and I love this. So I'm just gonna read this. It says, as governors are trying to figure out how to ease back into a new normal, please remember, some people don't agree with the state opening. That's okay. Be kind. Some people are still planning to stay home. That's okay. Be kind. Some are still scared of getting the virus and a second wave happening. That's okay. Be kind. Some are sighing with relief to go back to work knowing they may not lose their business or their homes. That's okay. Be kind. And so on and so forth. And we can actually repost this in the comments. But, one of the things that we've talked about a lot within the company is patience and grace, right? I come from a perspective where I assume I don't understand what someone else is going through. And so if we can operate under this idea of kindness and patience and grace, we're all wrestling with things in very different ways. I saw a story maybe a month ago early on about a woman who had to take her child with her grocery shopping and she was being shamed for it. And she's like, I'm a single mother. I don't have daycare. My parents aren't nearby. She didn't have a choice. And so I think that's just such a great reminder to be kind. Patience and grace always in everything that we do. Thank you for joining today. I think really great reminders. Tomorrow, again, we have Matt Clements on. He's a top producer, and he's going to talk about mindset. And then on Friday, we've got, sorry, I just blanked on her name. On Friday, we've got Vanessa Sestina coming on, and she's going to talk about real-time resilience. So this great back-to-back of inspiration and mindset, and it's just tremendous, very exciting. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining today. Be safe, be healthy, be happy, be productive, get your head in the right space, and we'll see you tomorrow.